Hi, Judy. I'm here.
Angie, I actually see a face.
This time, I'm still alive and visible.
Well, that's a good thing. We've got Christine. Hi, Christine. Hi, Hugh. Paul Varga. Just checking here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And I'm going to take roll call. Angie.
I'm here.
Me, I'm here. Judith Austin. Garth Bean. Nada. John Kopak.
Here.
Paul Varga.
Here.
Hugh, you're going to be, Jesse's not going to be here. He requested to seat you.
Thank you. I'm here.
Okay. Esther Jagozinski and Christina Davis.
Here.
Okay, so Garth isn't here, but he didn't send me a note. Paul, did you get a note from Garth?
I didn't see one. Hang on, I'll double check my email. But Christina's the only one left.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, you know, somebody's got to say something about something, right?
Yeah, no, I'll look. If he didn't send an email, then I mean, there's no. Then I guess it's out
I'm
of.
just gonna seat her.
Yeah.
So
I
Christina,
don't
I'm
see
gonna
anything from Garth.
I'm gonna seat you for Garth. We'll have to make sure he knows that when he's not there to make sure he sends me an email.
Try to let somebody know. Yeah. I do not see anything from him, Judy.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Christina.
I do not mind.
Okay. I have a little bit of communications. I've spoken to Chris from the auditors, King and King. They've already started their audit process. They're going to be going through, let's see, the next couple weeks. I guess the town office with the cafeteria to the GF, grants to the GF, general fund, town funds to the general fund. So they're going to be working with getting documents from the office, town offices throughout the beginning of August. Let's see what else. I went to the last school meeting and they have a new principal. We had requested at the last meeting that the board members or one board member attend. I guess they didn't feel that was necessary. I haven't heard anything from them. We still would like to request that we sit on the contract committee. I guess they had roughly, I think, approximately 11 people. You can correct me, John, if I'm wrong. But I just want to make sure that we restate that we would like to join that conversation. As far as other communications, I don't have anything. Does anybody else?
I have a question, Judy, Angie.
Hi, Angie, what's up?
Yeah, the principal was switched, but not the superintendent?
No, I from what I gather, the principal is still the principal, or no, the principal, I think she was vice principal and then maybe principal, I don't know, one or the other. But I know they have a new vice principal. So the person that was filling in that one of those positions is still there, and then they have a new vice principal, I believe. And then the
And
superintendent.
is the
That's Cindy
Yeah.
Ford.
Judy, Judy, this is Bill. Maybe I can try to shed a little light on that. If you don't mind.
Fine, Bill.
The principal left the school and took a position in North Stonington as a superintendent. The vice principal, Polly, they did a search for a new principal, an extensive search. Polly, who was the existing deputy principal, was appointed as full-time principal. And the contract, for lack of a better term, for superintendent's position has been bought out. I have not seen the final documents that have been signed, but in the interim, Cynthia Ford has been appointed as acting superintendent. And that was confirmed by a letter that my office received yesterday, a copy of a letter from the State Board of Ed acknowledging her appointment as acting principal.
as principal or superintendent?
Excuse me,
Superintendent.
as superintendent.
Okay,
Who's
thanks, Bill.
the new principal, Bill?
Excuse
They
me,
hired a new principal.
they hired
Vice principal, excuse me.
I do not know if they've hired a new vice principal. I was unable to make their last meeting. I don't know what their intention is on that.
They
Well,
have hired a
that's where
vice
I'm-
principal. I don't recall his name though.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting it from. I was at the last meeting and they did hire a vice principal.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, it doesn't look like we have anybody from the public. So I guess we can skip well, do we have any public comments? We'll be polite first. Okay, moving on. Okay, so let's see if we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting for June 23rd, 2022. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Thank you, guys. I saw one correction right off the bat. And I think we ought to correct it. I believe it was on the second page. And it said discharger. It should be discharged, DIS charged. CHARGED.
Oh, yeah, I see it. It's just a spelling error.
Well, sometimes I get fat fingers and I just do stuff.
No, you know what? The funny part is that was cut and pasted from the previous motion.
Oh, no. Oh,
So,
no.
all right.
Does anybody have any other corrections that they'd like to?
I noticed one very, very small thing.
Go ahead.
On the first page, under presentation by assessor, the second line, it lists Kara Fishman, assessor, town of Ashford, period. I think it should be town of Ashford, comma, and then dated 5/27. That's all. Just a period that should be comma.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. So all those in favor to accept the minutes from June 23rd, 2022,
Aye.
say aye.
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 So I got an Angie, a Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Thank you, John. Hugh? You were here.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. So motion passes unanimous.
Yeah, I think I should abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
You're correct, Christina, sorry. So 5 in favor, 1 abstain. Okay, new business, selectmen's update.
Okay, my last conversation with our tax collector, Linda Gagne, her total on unanticipated revenue collections, that's the amount above and beyond what we had forecast in last year's budget for revenue. That figure that I got from her was approximately $262,000. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I got to commend her on her diligence and hard work for the town and that office in particular. Last meeting, I reported some vandalism that we had experienced at our South Cemetery on Pumpkin Hill Road. I was visited by the investigating officer earlier this week, and they have located the 2 people that apparently have done it. They're a Utah couple that travel around the country doing this sort of thing, thinking that they're helping humanity by making it easier to read tombstones. They're not children, they're both in their 60s. The state police have contacted them, and we have reported it to our insurance carrier for advice on where we go from there. My assumption is that we will be covered by our liability cover for whatever damages end up being finalized there. The initial estimate I got was $30,000. And it will be their decision whether to subrogate against those people or to press charges. And I'll keep it posted. They actually were found out because they boasted about it on the internet. So,
Wow.
and again, they felt they were doing a public service. This is the ironic part about it. Our ARPA public hearing and town meeting that was scheduled for earlier this week on the 5th was postponed. We had an issue with our legal notice, and also we had a complication with our Zoom arrangements. I anticipate that meeting being rescheduled for August 8th. And so we'll take it from there. We'll have, we'll elaborate a little more on that, and the legal notice will appear in the Citizen for this month.
Bill, do you mean Monday, August 8th?
Correct.
Thank you.
Our parade and our open houses were a success. They were counters with the parade. We had almost 100 people actually participating in the parade. I commend the fire department. They had all of their apparatus in the parade, and many extras that showed up to take part in that. Our public works department was also in the parade. And we had over 100 spectators by count. Next year, we hope to improve on things. If anybody's interested in serving on a committee on that, please contact my office. We're putting that together now. But I thank everybody that participated, and it was a very nice day. And the weather held out for us. We have sold the fire truck that we replaced with the new truck that arrived this year. The amount is $12,500. It was by a volunteer company from West Virginia, and they anticipate on taking delivery, coming up to pick up the truck this coming weekend. I'm going to meet them on either Saturday or Sunday and exchange title and money payment for the truck. We were originally advised that the value of that truck was about $5,500 from past experience and several other sources that we double checked. We advertised it for 15 on a national venue, and we ended up selling it for 12.5. So I commend everybody that was involved in that. Our treasurer's position, which you know is open. We advertised extensively for that. We didn't get any applications in. We are still accepting applications. I've discussed this situation with several of my counterparts from other towns, and apparently taking on new personnel in the environment we're in right now is running into difficulties. Everybody's experiencing it. So we'll stay at it and we'll keep you advised. I do have to leave early. I'm going to stay for the next item on your agenda, but I've got another commitment, so I'm going to have to duck out. Please don't take it personal. But,
So Billy, did you say that you don't have any applicants yet?
we had no applications come in. That's correct.
How are we going to handle the audit and close out the year? Do we have a plan?
Well, the plan is to utilize Laura as much as we can. And that's about it right now. My office is assisting in any way we can. As you know, I attended the same meeting that you did for coordination purposes, and we will certainly bring all the forces that we can together to get that done. I'm told they'll probably kick into physical action here, if I remember right, Judy, the middle of August.
Yeah, the beginning. Well, he actually has it scheduled for the beginning, but we were gonna go roll with it until we knew what was happening, if we had a replacement earlier or not. But as far as I know, he can actually extract some of the documents that he needs right now to start it.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that he had indicated a lot of the information they need. And we did sign, I signed, well, I think we all did, confidentiality agreements giving them permission, but that they could actually get a good portion of what they're looking for remotely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, folks.
I have a question. I have two questions.
I said Christina.
Yeah, can I ask one question about the fire truck? Where does that $12,500 go? Does it go to the general fund or does it go back to the fire department?
General fund.
General fund.
You mean I can't have it? No, it goes to the general fund.
And then on the treasurer position, I'm just not surprised because it's just really hard to find people in general, but it's also particularly very difficult to find finance people. If you recall, the school had a heck of a time finding someone. The one thing I'm just curious about is where did we advertise the position?
Well, Christine was going to be joining us. She did all the placement of those ads in our typical ad. I know DAS had it on their line. And actually Dina from the school had a couple of resources through some links she had with state finance people. It was on that link. But if you have any suggestions, Christina, please shoot me an email.
Yeah, I will, because I do marketing professionally and I do it for a staffing company. So like LinkedIn for one is super effective. So I would recommend trying to get it at least on LinkedIn, and then maybe some of the other job boards like ZipRecruiter, if that hasn't been used yet. But I'll send you an email.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Quiet. Okay, so we move on to the discussion and action on the request by the Board of Selectmen for the steep grant funding. You guys got an email from Paul about this? Right, everybody?
Yes.
So, Bill, I have one question for this, as I'm looking at it. Our capital projects had, $205,000 for the road resurfacing, in the capital funds. Is there any way, or are you thinking about taking some of that funding to use towards this 100,000 required?
It's a good question. It was the first thing I looked into to see if we could dedicate any of that money that had already been dedicated to the redoing of Southward Drive. And I was told by OPM, it could only be on specially dedicated new money coming in, not money that we had already appropriated in the last budget.
So when did we know we were going to go after this grant? Do you have a time frame? Like,
There was a webinar held, I believe it was last Wednesday, a week ago yesterday, with updates on what we could put in for, what the timelines is. The cutoff date on that is August 15th on being able to put it in. And I did not, I was committed to a couple of other meetings. Christine, and I thought she was going to join us here tonight. Apparently she's having trouble getting in or is indisposed, but she sat in on that. And that was one of the reasons also why we picked out that August 8th meeting, because we felt we could meet the deadline and submit the grant if we did receive your approval and to go to town meeting, and of course town meeting approval on it.
so
This was not something we knew during the capital improvements meetings that were going on for our last budget.
Is this like a new thing this year, or has this been an
Well,
item in the past?
We utilized a steep grant last year, if you'll remember, to complete, and I don't believe that was in the capital plan either, but I could be corrected on that. But we did the improvements to Tremco Lane. That was a special appropriation, and we were granted funds that covered all of that, with the exception, I understand, of the sidewalks, which we went ahead and did. But that was a steep grant that was approved for us. Some of the merits of gaining points for this sort of a project is if it's shovel ready, and we're told by definition we meet that definition according to OPM, we get extra points of approval on that. One, if we do a matching grant, we'll be applying for $500,000. We have to match that. We don't have to match it, but we're recommending we match that with $100,000 because that's another benefit of gaining points for the grant fund. And the fact that Southworth Drive has been postponed because it's a major project, probably for the past 4 years that I know about. It could be longer than that. And I remember my first term as selectman, I inherited a road that had to be done, that it was passed over for probably 6 or 7 years. That was Bicknell Road. And you reach a point with these roads, if you defer repaving over a certain amount of time, they deteriorate to such an extent that you lose the entire road, and repaving is no longer an option. You've got to go down the base, redo your draining and everything else. We haven't reached that point on Southworth Drive, but I personally inspected it. I've had a couple of people who were experts in that, including our highway foreman, take a close look at that. And it is beginning to crack badly and show advanced deterioration. So it's, if we can get the funds and we can do it without paying totally from the town coffers, we're highly recommending that we go for that. My board had a special meeting this week on that, and we fully support bringing it to the town and giving our narrative and explanation of that allocation. It's one of these things, if we dedicate the money and we don't get the grant, we don't have to spend it.
Okay, so with that said, we're looking at 600,000 for that and the 205,000 for the other, so $800,000 for roads this year. Hopefully.
Yes, I'm going to assume we don't get to that road until next spring, but yeah.
And I guess my other question would be, where are you considering taking these funds from?
General fund.
The general or the
General fund is
unassigned?
what our recommendation would be.
Hey, Bill and Judy.
Yeah.
Didn't I gotta find it. I thought it was, yeah, the Board of Finance, the selectmen would have to recommend the Board of Finance an appropriation from the undesignated fund balance, which is technically part of the general fund, I believe, but
Correct.
it's from the unassigned fund,
Correct.
unassigned or undesignated, unassigned. We use two different names there, but
I stand corrected. You can.
yeah. I just want to make sure everybody understands that, and that's actually where my concern is, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Because, back in March, we moved 204,000 from the unassigned fund balance to CNR, and that left us at the 10.5% mark. In order to be at 10.5%, we need 1.6. It's 1.578, but 1.6 million. So if we take 100,000 out of that, we'd be under that 1.6, obviously, and it puts us actually under the 10% mark. So we know that we have a bonding package coming up. There's two bits of good news that I can put to this, though, if we decide to go this route. First is that we know Linda's done a great job and we might have a little extra money, but I'm not a big fan of spending that because I think we might need it. Things aren't going to be very good next year. The other part of that is we can take some of that money we put into CNR and put it back into the unassigned fund balance. That was actually one of the questions I asked when Cheryl was still here that night, and that the Board of Finance has the authority to do that as well, to keep that 10.5% for going forward. Because at this point, I myself have two concerns. The one is we know about the school building project. Some of the parts of that have already become kind of messy with what's going on at the Board of Ed. And that's a bonding issue or possible bonding package. And then just going forward next year, I think Linda's going to have a lot harder time even meeting the goal that she sets for herself, just based on the current economic times. And That's kind of my concern when we do this. Having said that, if you drive up Chatty Road and you want to know what happens when you let the road go too long, that's what happens. If you go down Chatty Road right now, they're digging up all the culverts and replacing them all. Because
At this point with Southworth Drive, and we've taken
we're getting
an
close.
engineering look at that. The only things that we have to replace are the grates with the resurfacing. But
Right.
if it goes much further, you're going to be looking at exactly the same
That's
scenario.
that's kind of what I was getting at, Bill, is that we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because when you get to that section, that 205,000 that we appropriated, probably a lot of it is going to Chatty Road, because I can't imagine that that's a cheap project. They've been on it now for almost 3 weeks, every day.
The bulk of it is going to Chatty Road.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying, and that's because we kept pushing these off, and it's one of those things. We shoot ourselves in the foot in one place and try to do something else somewhere else. So, but I just want to make sure that those are my concerns. I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about. So, thank you, Judy.
No, they are legitimate, and I'm concerned too with the bond rating. But I'm also concerned that we don't have anybody at the helm watching everything we're spending stuff on, to keep us in check and give us an update and make sure that we're in a good state. I think we're kind of like spending on a lot of stuff, but nobody's reporting back to us how it's going, or watching it. So we really need somebody in that office.
Well, I can assure you one thing, and I apologize for not having figures. As you're all aware, we're working at a little handicap. But 2 weeks into this, we are certainly not abusing any spending.
Oh, no. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that a lot of projects are coming up, and we still have things that might come up, pop their little heads up that we have unexpectedly foreseen. So, I don't know. I just, oh,
Can I ask a question?
go ahead, Christina.
So the $262,000 in revenue collection that is expected to come in above projection.
It has.
It has, right? Because the fiscal year is closed, right? So we know that that's the number. So where does that money go? That extra 262?
Yeah, well, depending on what you want to call it, the general fund or the undesignated fund balance.
So,
And you're asking for 100K?
Correct.
So that's
Not to be spent if we don't get the grant.
right. And one other question, because I think that I don't want to open up this can of worms, but I feel like it's all.
I'd rather address questions up front.
I think it's all intertwined, right? Is the oil tank and the roof on the school, like, what is the status of that? And what is our commitment to that? And I know there was hope that half of that project would be picked up by the state. Is that still the hope, or has that gotten screwed up? Like, what is the status?
Well, we've got a meeting coming up with the building committee. So hopefully we'll get clarity on a lot of that stuff. But the status, as I understand it, Christina, is in our capital improvements, we dedicated 135,000. In the non-lapsing fund this year, I believe, and don't hold me to exactly the figures, but the Board of Finance authorized 155,000 to the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed in turn dedicated 135,000 to match the amount that's capital improvement funding for that. What we were told was that total project for the oil tank was 270,000. Now, our understanding, originally we were told the state was going to reimburse the town in the area between 72 and 74% of that amount. We're now told it's 64% reimbursement.
And why did it go down? Why did it go down?
I don't have a, I don't have a legitimate answer for that. It's under the state auspices. I have no control over it. Those funds, when they're reimbursed, will go into the undesignated or general fund from the state. Then it will be up to the Board of Finance if they appropriate any of that reimbursement back to the Board of Ed. One of the problems that I've just learned about, and of course with the ongoing situation at the school, it's been a little complicated to keep a handle on it. But I understand what we've been advised, or what Craig was being advised by the engineers, was the tank, like a lot of other things we're running into, was going to be on back order. It was not going to come in as early as he originally anticipated it. How
Do
long
we,
back order, I don't know.
and have we even ordered it?
I'll tell you after we have this meeting next week.
Wow.
It's
I didn't know.
complicated.
That's going to be interesting because we're up
I didn't
against a
know the
hard
reimbursement
deadline for
went down
removing it.
either. That's news to me too.
One of the problems, John, is we were advised that our insurance carrier, because of the age of the tank, was no longer going to insure that tank.
Correct. As you say,
And
we've got a hard deadline to remove it.
I've asked for clarification from the state, whether the insurance company can actually do that. I haven't got an answer yet. I'm also told that the state will consider extending the life period of a tank like that as long as it meets the proper test procedures. I still say the sooner we can get that out, because it is reaching its life expectancy, the better off we are. If we were to pull that tank prior to us getting the grant authorization, the pulling of the tank, which is a lot of money just to do in itself, would not be covered in the grant. So there's a lot of loose ends on that, and that's why we need to have a organizational meeting with ourselves. I think the Board of Finance should have a member sitting in. I know Cindy's going to be in on it. Our engineers, Friars, are going to be in on it. Just to try to get all of this thing in some sort of a situation where people have a better handle on it.
Who from our board's going to be sitting on this?
I just said somebody from your board should.
Sounds like you just raised your hand, Judy.
No, just questioning. I thought he said somebody was. I just wanted to know.
No, I said should.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still in shock of the reimbursement thing. That's the first I've heard of that.
Well, it'll change tomorrow again too. So
Huh?
I said it will change again, because that's what
I
they
know.
do, unfortunately.
I know, and that's what makes me nervous is by saying somebody's not in Cheryl's position, we can't really keep track of what's going on here.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Bill, do you remember off the top of your head what the amount was for in that for the oil in the capital budget for the oil tank originally?
My recollection, we were putting up through that fund 135, and the school was dedicating out of
Right,
their
270. Yeah, I'm trying to find it and I can't find it in all my.
That's the only figure I've ever heard,
I
Paul.
think you're right. Okay. And that was that included, did we take into account the original reimbursement thought, or that 270 was the target number and we thought we would get that reimbursement?
That was the target number was the total cost of the project of 270.
Right.
I've asked for a breakdown of that. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Because obviously there's engineering in that. There's, taking up of the old tank as a portion. I haven't seen a breakdown of that. I've requested it. But the reimbursement for whatever the bottom line is, which we anticipated 270 would cover it, initially was either 72 or 74%.
Right. So it kind of sounds like the additional revenue that Linda was able to collect might get eaten up, unfortunately, by some of these projects that the oil tank was already approved by at the referendum. It was in the capital improvement budget.
Correct.
Well, at least the 270 was.
And the oil tank, quite honestly, is not an option.
No, I'm not. No, it's not. I 100% agree, actually, for many reasons. But I'm just, again, looking at the breakdowns and looking ahead. So basically, Bill, you're looking for an appropriation of $100,000. I don't know if Chris wrote a motion for that.
Well, I thought she had sent something out, but what the
She
board of
did, but I
select,
don't. She did,
With
but
the-
I don't think she wrote a motion.
what the board of selectmen would be doing would be asking the board of finance to authorize the board of selectmen to call a special town meeting for the appropriation of 100,000
Okay.
to go as a matching grant towards the this year's steep grant.
Right. It might be, she sent the minutes late yesterday. Let me see if it has that in there. Oh. Yes. Yeah, the minutes just said that your board made a motion, approved a motion to recommend the Board of Finance approve an appropriation of $100,000 to serve as the municipal match relating to submission of a 2022 Small Town Economic Assistance Program grant in the amount of $500,000 for the reconstruction and paving of Southworth Drive. So I'm just trying to figure out how the motion should be worded.
Somewhere in there, I believe the motion would read that the board of finance authorizes the board of selectmen to call a
It
special.
has to go
town
to, it has to go to a town meeting.
Correct.
Yes,
Special town meeting.
yep, it's over the amount.
Right, that's right.
The other thing too, I would add to the motion is, if the grant's not awarded, that the funds be returned back to the general fund.
I'm totally comfortable with that.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Christina.
So I really don't feel comfortable voting on moving money when I don't know how much is in these various funds, and that what Paul's referring to, that 10% or 10.5%. And I know we gotta, shouldn't we see a report that shows like how much money came in last year and that 262K that's extra, where it all goes? And then I don't feel comfortable moving money if I can't see, if there's no breakdown of like where the money is, where it stands, and where it needs to go.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but unfortunately, the grant has a very strict deadline. Hence, we're backed up into this issue.
We don't have that resource either.
Correct.
I mean, isn't there, I thought there is a person in the finance office. Cheryl resigned, but there's another person, right? What's her name?
Laura
Laura. Like,
Albert.
she can't pull reports?
She can't pull all the reports, and she's a part-time deputy treasurer. She's trying to help on part of the stuff that Cheryl used to handle, but that really was outside of her work load.
So she's not interested in going full-time, even if it's just in the interim while we find somebody?
I would care not to discuss personnel matters, but I
Yeah,
can assure you I've had the same thoughts that you have.
this is not the time. We're trying to figure out how we can do this without all the information we need. We know that we lack personnel to get that.
Well, the one thing that we do know, I mean, basically is that as of June 30th of 2021, we know what that's the audited numbers that we used to move the money on March 3rd. So at the end of that day on March 3rd, we had $1,578,871 in the unassigned fund balance. And seeing as we haven't moved any money out of that unassigned fund balance since March 3rd, that's what should still be in there.
Yeah, hope that's there, but unless you have the report, you don't know.
Well, yeah, but because we have to authorize it being moved. So the general fund is a little bit different in that the general fund is what the town voted on. And we just started that fiscal year. So that's a whole different animal. And I agree, Christine, I would like to see the number just to make sure that what we see or what we have here and what is there now is the same. Unfortunately, we don't have the person in place to do that. And the other problem is that, as Judy mentioned earlier, King & King is starting their audit. So when we get that, hopefully that audit comes out that we have 1.578871 million. That's the whole idea. That's why we do it that way. But again, that's what I'm not so much concerned about that there's money missing from that fund because we haven't allocated any funds to come out of that for anything. So I'm more concerned about going under the 10% number. But we do have the option, like I said, of once we can get that information, like in other words, when the audit is complete, we can take the numbers that we get from King & King and move money back in to bring that fund balance back to where we want it. So I'm trying to come up with a way to word the motion. So, and then people can vote how they feel. I want to write the motion correctly so that we don't have to come back and do it again.
Am I correct then? Is what I'm hearing, we're not going to get financial reports until we hire a full-time treasurer, a position we've gotten 0 applications in.
We don't have a full-time treasurer. We never had a full-time treasurer. We have a part-time treasurer that's backed up by another part-time treasurer. Cheryl's position the title was administrative aide. That's another full-time position that we're going to be trying to fill. Our thought was it would make sense not to fill that or to actively advertise, although we're ready to advertise for it now, until we had our treasurer in place, because those 2 positions Cheryl was holding, it was a combined position, and it's put us in the dilemma we're in right now. I didn't support that 12 years ago, and I don't support it today because my concern then was exactly what we're facing right now. 2 critical positions in our finance office leave or open at the same time. So we're replacing that with 2 individuals. So
right, but I'm just saying we aren't going to, am I correct that we're not going to see financial reports until we make a hire? And in the best case scenario, that could be a month. It's probably more like 3, 4, or 5 months.
I don't believe so. I'm working with our deputy to try to pull those reports. I just don't want to represent to you and tell you I'm going to have that by the town meeting in August or whatever. We're aware that there's a problem with that and we're working on it. I just don't want to give you a timeline, but believe me, it's a priority for us to generate those. And if we have to turn to our auditors to give us some assistance, we will do that through Judy.
I'm just really shocked. I'm sorry that someone would leave and nobody would train the people left on how to pull these reports. Like, these
I think we're
systems
getting
are not that
I think we're getting
complicated.
off subject here, Judy. We're
Yeah,
getting
point
into
of order.
personnel
We call the
issues that I would
question,
care
please.
not to. I
Point
did
of
not.
order. We call the question.
Out of
please.
order, guys, out of order. Okay, we know we have an issue. We know we have a deadline. It's kind of a bad position to put us in, but nothing we say tonight's gonna help this. It is what it is. So let's see if we can put together some kind of motion to get it to the town and the town can decide. Okay. And I understand, Christina, your frustration. I'm very irritated at the second. I probably can tell by my voice, but we got to do what we got to do and move forward. We can't just hash it out all night because we know it's wrong.
Do you want me to state the motion as it's already been stated?
Yeah, do we actually have one,
If-
Valerie?
Well, the motion that I've heard is that the Board of Selectmen has asked the Board of Finance to call for a special town meeting to appropriate $100,000 as a matching amount in order to, this is where it's a little bit fuzzy, but in order to receive, it's a municipal match for a steep grant in the amount of $500,000 to pave Southwick Drive. If the grant is not awarded, funds will return to the general fund.
Valerie, you're awesome.
Yeah, that's really, really good. It's pretty close. I was trying to pull one up. I know that in the past, the board has done them. I just can't find one.
I think that's what we want to hit anyway. I mean, it covers all aspects
Yeah,
of it,
so-
including the return.
I mean, I can look at the language in the document that was sent on the steep grant.
Yeah,
and
so
make sure
here's what
that
I have it. I was gonna, I'll word it this way. And I'll make the motion that the Board of Finance authorize the appropriation of $100,000 from the unassigned fund balance for use to meet the steep grant submission for the paving and reconstruction of Southworth Drive. Should the grant not be awarded, the funds would be returned to the funds would be returned to the general funds. I have to go. Somebody's at the door. Excuse me.
I was going to offer a friendly suggestion for an amendment, Judy,
Go ahead, Bill.
that the Board of Finance authorizes the Board of Selectmen to call a town meeting and then carry on where you left off, authorizing the appropriation of $100,000 from the undesignated fund balance. I mean, neither my board nor your board has the authority without town meeting authority approval to
Right, and
authorize the
I
expenditure.
forgot to include that. It would have to go. I guess we would authorize I guess maybe it should be authorize the Board of Selectmen to call a special town meeting to request the appropriation of $100,000. Is that
That-
better
Right.
wording, Bill?
Yes,
Okay.
Did you get that, Valerie? Pretty close.
I will listen to the recording.
Yeah. So, if you want, Val, I'll try to restate it. I move that the Board of Finance recommends to the Board of Selectmen that to call a special town meeting for the purpose of authorizing $100,000 from the unassigned fund balance for use in the application of a steep grant for the express purpose of the paving and reconstruction project of Southworth Drive.
friendly
And if
amendment.
funds are not used, they are returned.
Board,
If
Board,
and-
Board of Finance authorizes the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
I want to make sure we get the fund, if the funds aren't used, they return to the
right,
general
and
fund.
yes, and if the funds are not, if the grant is not awarded, the funds will be returned to the general fund.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Judy, was that a
Okay.
question? Yes, it was Hugh.
Okay, so you got the motion, Hugh's got the second. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Paul Varga, aye.
We got, how many ayes? Aye,
Hugh, aye.
2, 3,
Angie?
John, aye.
Aye.
4, 5. Christina?
I'm a no.
Okay. So 5 in favor, 1 no. Motion passed.
Folks, I've got to duck out for 5 o'clock, but thank you very much. And,
Bill,
for an 8
Bill,
o'clock.
if you can, find out some information exactly where we're at.
I'm working on that and I hopefully will get you something soon on that.
Yeah, because I'm uncomfortable with this whole guessing game too.
Well, we all are, and we've been put in a
know.
difficult situation that we're dealing with, but I appreciate your
know.
payments and I believe me, I sympathize with your concerns. I have some of the same ones, but I can't assure you that money isn't pouring out that we're not aware of, so.
Yep.
All right,
I
folks,
understand
thank you.
that.
Thank you for what you
Night.
do. Have a good night.
Okay. Moving on to old business, the discussion and possible action regarding open space fund. Do we have anybody from that committee on? No.
No. So,
I was told by Loretta that she sent everything that you wanted, so you have
did.
that information.
right.
Yeah.
She did
And
send
I'm in
everything
favor
we
of it.
asked for, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we all got it, right? Was sent to everybody?
Yep.
Oh boy, I got a mess going on. Okay, did everybody get to review how much land that we have that is identified for open space? She gave us a breakdown of 7,868.49 acres of open space the town currently has, and the amount of it is 4,084.49 that's permanently protected. Ashford has a total of 25,280 acres. So I
Excuse
guess
me,
the question,
excuse me, I didn't get a copy of that, and you run off these numbers so fast. If you could send me a copy, it would be helpful. Thank you.
certainly, Valerie.
All right,
I
Valerie, that's my fault. Actually, it's Loretta's fault, but we'll blame her. I will send it to you right now.
Why would it be Loretta's fault? You were the ones that wanted to get the stuff and you were supposed to send it to us.
Angie.
It was a joke.
Oh,
He's
okay.
messing around.
Yeah. I was kidding.
Oh, okay. Haha.
She actually only sent it to me and Judy, and then I had to forward it to everybody, and it didn't go to Valerie.
Yeah, 'cause
So
she didn't have everybody's address.
right, yeah.
Right.
Let me see. Yeah, I'm working on it, Valerie. So you don't need to worry about it. The numbers are in there.
You know what I don't have? I don't have the exact figure of that grant money.
It's the pilot money.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe it was
But it-
8,000.
yeah, but if we do anything with it, I gotta make sure we have the right figure. Look in the back. It would be probably in either last minutes or the minutes before.
I have 8,500, but I don't think that's correct. Something around there. I don't think I got the exact.
I'm looking at the letter and it says request that the donated monies from Yale University, approximately $8,000, be designated for the Open Space Land Acquisition Fund.
Yeah, and approximately is not
Yeah, that's not going to cut it.
accurate. I know somebody said the exact figure. I don't remember who. It might have been Cheryl.
What a mess.
Oh, thought I had it, but I don't. Anyhow, we can have discussion on it. I mean, it's something that if we wanted to move on it, we could move on it next week too, or table it for next week.
Well, Valerie, I sent that information to you. Sorry, it took a minute. I don't even know what to say about this because I'm like stuck in the middle. I find it, first of all, I think that 16% of the town being an open space is a pretty good number when you consider the size of the town of Ashford. I don't think it's the town of Ashford's responsibility to meet the whole state's entire goal. And then the other problem I have with that fund is that according to the information we had 2 or 3 meetings ago, the funds cannot be used for maintenance of the properties. They can only be used for acquisition. And so we're going to tie up money earmarked for specifically for purchasing of properties with no way of having any funds set aside for maintaining those properties. And in my world, I call that an unfunded mandate. It's just a different kind. And I can think of plenty of examples of the current properties that are listed that are not being maintained. And some that are that still need more work because it takes a lot of time and money and effort to get it done.
I was kind of surprised at the amount of land. You know, once it was printed out.
Yeah, I was too, actually. How much the town actually, oh, not the town, but how much is actually open space? So we have 7,800 and change of open space. And of that, a little over 4,000 acres is permanently protected, federal, state, and protected farms. That represents 16% of our total acreage. I didn't check the math on that, so.
The math is correct. I double
Is
checked
it?
it.
Okay, if you tell Christina, was that 16%? Is that the 7,800 of the 25?
No.
Yeah, it's the 4,000, right?
Right. So if you do the larger number, it's more like a 30%.
Right. Right. You know, the goal, and I said it in the beginning of my statement, the state's goal is 21%, which I think is a pretty lofty goal for a state the size of Connecticut, located where we are in our population, to be honest with you. But if the town of Ashford is already at 16%, I'd say we did our part. I've
been thinking about this in terms of, I think you really have to look at this as it relates to the open space. Actually, no, it's the plan of conservation and development that was put together that designates certain areas for commercial development and other areas not. And, I was thinking there's a property near me on Howard Road that's like 20 something acres that you can't see from the road. And if that were to come up to be turned into open space, one of these crook orchard type deals, I would say no, because it doesn't have any benefit to the larger community. But there are other properties, let's say Upton Road is a really pretty road. And that's there's like 50, 60 acres on that road. And if that were to come up, would it be in the interest of the community to see that preserved as open space? I think there's an argument to be had for that. So I just wanted to mention that I think that if we think about it in terms of that plan of conservation and development, that these sort of things should be working, in tandem.
Yeah, but the problem is that what's happened in the past already is we have properties that are not, like, don't fit that description, because here's what happens. Somebody comes up with the idea and they purchase this property, or they push for it and it gets purchased. The building rights get purchased, or the town permanently purchases the property. A really good example is the under the Joshua Trust one, trying to find it. The Fleagle Farm Woods is 5.53 acres. That's actually right behind my property. In order to access it, you have to go on a private road and park on a private property. Now that's owned by a land trust, so they own it. It's a privately owned, but it's a land trust that's locked in conservation. They're not supposed to be able to sell it, supposedly. But again, those land trusts do come to the town for matching funds, et cetera, et cetera. And some of these properties, and that's one that I will tell you is not maintained at all. It's basically, which is fine. It's just natural forest.
Well, there's a trail. There's a trail on that property because I've hiked it, and
the
only
reason there's a trail is because people hike it.
There is a river, right? Which river goes through there, or
That's
stream?
the Knowlton Brook.
Right. So Knowlton Brook, and I'm sure that's probably why it was, targeted for preserving, because of the river running through it.
Well, the story's long and torrid, but it has to do with all the houses that are on that property. That used to be a farm about the size of mine. So that was subdivided.
Well, don't they, sometimes with a subdivision, they have to set aside land.
That's what that was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that doesn't have, the town doesn't have control over that, right?
Well, they do. It's part of the zoning thing.
It's part of the town zoning. It's not a state requirement?
Nope, that's not state, that's town. So, the problem is that I'm not a fan of it at all. I've not made it. I'm not keeping it a secret. And part of it is like I said, I look at all these properties and there are several that are not maintained. And then what's going to happen eventually when the town owns more land than private citizens do, or a land trust does? Then we get into the whole problem. We already have this problem where and you actually brought it up, Christina, that the plan of conservation does have, and the zoning regulations have places where we can do commercial and all that. There's been multiple projects proposed for exit 72 that have all been pushed back, mostly by the Lake District or Lake Chafee, because it does kind of border them. And so eventually one or two things is going to happen, or three. One, that'll stay just like it is and be nothing and do nothing for the town. Two, it'll become a bunch of houses at some point, which isn't necessarily good for the town either. Or three, maybe eventually we'll get a commercial project in there that can help our tax base and we don't have to worry about the $100,000 to repave Southworth Drive.
Right, and that's, I guess that's what I'm saying is properties that come up by exit 72 would not be a smart property to preserve as open space.
Well, that's your opinion.
But that is in the plan of conservation and development. And if we are keeping to that plan and updating that plan, we would stick by that. That's why you put those things in place.
Yeah, I have an opinion.
Go ahead, Angie.
Okay. I support giving the 8,000 to the what is it called? Open space. It's not a lot of money. I believe in giving money here and there to have the Conservation Commission look into if there are possibilities. We don't have a lot of them coming up. The last one I know was Crook's Orchard, so I don't know if we had any since then. And we have to come together as a town to vote on it, where we will then have people saying goods and bads about it and whether they want it to go that way. So give the 8,000. It's not 80,000, it's 8,000. I believe in the commissions of our town. I believe Conservation Commission people have best interests of people like me. And so I will support them and vote for it. So I'm in favor of it.
Anybody else?
Did you find the exact number, Judy?
No, I did not. I believe it was the meeting, not the last one, but the one prior.
Let me see if I can find it for you.
I think it was the one that Loretta actually attended.
Okay.
I apologize for that. I'm kind of on the fence about this. I don't, I think people ought to have.
According to what she said, in my notes, I only said the Yale University School of the Environment about 8,000 annually.
Yeah, that's what the minutes say.
I could have sworn somebody had an actual figure though, because before it never came through the Board of Finance. They went directly to
Well, it's pilot money. It goes right to the general fund.
yeah, but now
They're
it's
just
now,
asking for basically what the Conservation Commission wants is for us to say we want the town, for all intents and purposes, we're just creating a new line item for open space acquisition fund, which I think actually already exists.
Yeah, I don't think it's new. It exists.
Yeah,
It just has,
exists.
it has, I think it was stated there's just very little money in it.
And I will say that Angie is right. And that's one of the reasons that I admit I'm not a fan. Like I said, I won't keep it a secret. But one of the things that I'm not the only person that lives in town, and the town does have to vote on it when we spend that money. My only wish is that we could make it so that the town could use a portion of that money to do some upkeep to some of the properties we already own or have an interest in. Because like I said, if you use all the money to buy it, I spoke with somebody earlier and said, it's like buying a car and not putting money aside for gas and an oil change. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, when I buy property or whatever, I have to pay my taxes. So I have to know that when I buy the property, I'm gonna have to pay on it continuously. So that's kind of my place. But you're right, Angie is right. The townspeople vote, and if the town as a whole decide that they want that piece of property, then that's what they decide. Right now, I'm just, the only
I
thing I
don't
would say
think the
is
town as a whole, I don't think the town as a whole knows how much property that we really do have as open space, because I didn't, I've lived here forever.
right, and well, that's on the commission when they want to purchase one to tell people,
No.
you know.
What the commission should do, I know I'm not on your board, but I listened to all of this, and it seems to me that they don't even send someone to come and represent their views, but they should write something for the Ashford Citizen about open space and how much we have and how much is,
Yeah,
they should do that.
You're right.
That would
100%.
be wonderful.
So just to clarify, unless I'm reading this wrong, there's only 4 properties that are actually owned by the town that are considered open space. There's the Ashford Town Green, Recreation Park, Ashford Common, and all 3 of those I think are maintained. They're mowed at a minimum. The only one that's really not maintained is Langhammer open space, but that's forest with trails. There's really nothing to maintain.
The town also owns a piece of property right next to the school that is not maintained. I don't know what that one is, if that's even listed on here, to be honest with you.
What property would that be?
I can't remember the name of it. And I just lost my.
I mean, there's woods behind the school but those are.
I know what Paul's talking about, because a while ago, somebody, I don't know if it was Catherine or Bill, somebody was talking about looking at that land and having it for like a dog walk area.
Yep, they want to make it a dog park.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the other thing I look at too is the amount of open space. If you're not maintaining it, it becomes like this big fire hazard too. You know, if you keep having open space and you end up with a fire, take out the whole town. I don't know.
So
I think we're doing good though. I mean, if we got 16% and that's what the state's looking for, there's a reason they're looking for that. We're pretty close by our own here.
And I wonder if I'm guessing that pilot money number changes every year. I'm sure Yale just gives whatever they base it on some percentage of value or something to that effect. This is where I miss Cheryl.
Yeah. I don't know how much we have in the fund either. How much do we currently have?
Can I just make a recommendation that, and this is just a thought. Like we all know right now that the treasurer's office is basically half staffed, and we don't have answers to questions like how much is in that fund and how much does that pilot money change, or does it change? Do we have to do this every year? Can we make this an ongoing thing? Can we table this until we get somebody in that office that can answer some questions?
I don't see why not. I don't think it's like an emergency to do it.
Well, the money's not going anywhere because
they don't have anything they want to purchase at the moment.
Right, and I think there's some credence to Valerie's comment too. Like, they sent us a letter. And then Loretta came once, and I understand she's busy because I get it. I'm busy too, but there's nothing on the docket for us to be looking at to purchase the town as far as open space. It would be prudent for us as a board to make sure we do it the right way, and that we don't make up some number, and also that we're not doing any more damage after we just discussed that we're worried about spending money we don't know if we have it.
Yeah, I would be for tabling it.
Honestly, I don't think we should table it at this point. I think we should just end it.
Just,
We have not permanently, but we have no idea when we're going to get a new treasurer. We have no idea where that treasurer is going to be from. So once we hire that person, they're going to need time to learn the job in this town and kind of familiarize yourself with all these things that we're going to have questions about that they won't be able to answer off the top of their head.
Right.
So I think, this isn't the year to put something in place to do for here. And let's just worry about this next year when we have somebody in the job for a while that knows the town and can answer all these questions, and then we can make a better decision from there instead of having this on every agenda for the next 8 months until that happens. It's just, we'll deal with it when we're prepared to deal with it.
Yeah, I guess table wasn't the right word, huh, John?
I just don't want it on the agenda for every meeting until
Right.
it winds up,
Right.
you do have a point. I am really nervous about what we did tonight.
I think everybody's nervous right now, Judy.
So, yeah. And he's correct. This year is not the year to be messing around with funds. Though it's not, a huge amount, it's still. Does anybody want to make some kind of a motion for this?
We don't need any motion. We can just not take action on it and it goes away for now.
Right.
Well, the other thing too is I don't want to lose sight of it, in case we do get somebody in and somebody can tell us where we're at and, we have a better outlook. I don't want to tank it, but.
I think if it goes a full year before we've dealt with it, that it'll come back to our attention and not necessarily by our hands.
True.
Yeah, I do agree with, and we could, I guess Judy would have to just tell Loretta that based on the current economic situation, we want to wait. And especially with the lack of a treasurer to answer some pretty legit questions about funds.
All right. I just don't want anybody to get discouraged, but you're right. We'll let this one go.
The truth is, we need to have a treasurer in place to handle this. We need to have a discussion about zoning in town to make an informed decision about what these funds could be used for. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and we don't have the staff right now. Because I would actually support putting that money in with restrictions. But things like buying development rights, that's not my.
Say that again, John. I can barely hear you.
I said I would be willing to put that money into a fund with restrictions, but we don't have access to the information to set that up right now. It's just where we are. It's where as a town, it's just where we are at the moment with personnel and everything going on.
Yeah, and John, you have a point. Even if we made a motion, there's no treasurer to actually do the job, do it. So
that's true. That's true.
I mean, I know that Laura's doing her best, and I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that she has to currently work with the town and get the normal daily stuff done. Adding to
this
her
doesn't
plate
need to be
is
on her
not going to
plate
help
too.
anybody out at all. So
no, we don't need to talk about the employees. We just know that we are lacking support in making sound decisions. All right, so we will, yeah, we'll let this go for now. And like John said, I'm sure it will come up again. So we won't lose sight. All right. The 2021 annual report update. Obviously, Jesse's not here.
Jesse's in the woods.
We'll table that for now. Till next time. The audit update, I kind of gave you guys a briefing that they started pulling information. They can get into certain systems and get reports themselves, so they started. Agendas for the next meeting. We can revisit the annual report. Hopefully Jesse will be around and we'll get an update. Steve Grant. When's our next meeting? Is that 2 weeks?
Yeah, the 28th. I was just looking it up, Judy. That's
Okay, so it's right before the public hearing if he gets it in there for August
right. If
8th.
he gets it in there, yeah. Correct.
Okay. Maybe we can get an update on what's going on with the tank and stuff for the school from somebody. I'm shocked that that's changed from 72 to 74% to 60 something. But things are evolving.
Nothing shocks me too much anymore, I don't think.
I just have one question. How does Christina have so much light at her house? Because you're outside, right?
Outside.
Are you outside?
How is there so much light?
Because it's getting dark
Because
out.
I'm looking out here. It's dark over here.
I guess on my side of Ashford, it's brighter. Must be all the, you know what it is? It's all the open space over here.
That's right. That's what you like.
Are you sitting
No
on top of
trees.
my hill? I'm gonna come get you.
No. I'm close to the Wellington town line, so maybe it's Wellington.
Oh, you know what it is? It's the light from the truck stop.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
It's like a space laser.
What do we have for items for next week? Anybody have anything they want to contribute to the next week agenda besides the update of the annual report?
The one question I had, because I know we authorized King to do the audit for another year, right? We signed a contract for 1 year. They wanted 3 years. We said 1 year. And we said we would go out to bid next round potentially to get other prices. And I know that going out to bid is a long time consuming process. So when would that start and when would that have to be on the agenda so we don't miss the window to look?
I don't remember saying going out to bid. We've only had them, what, 2 years? 1 year, 2 years?
Really? I think it's been a long time.
No, they're fairly new. This might be year 3, Judy, actually.
Yeah, you don't swap them out. Excuse me. You do swap them out after a period of time because normally auditors become complacent because they get to know people and blah, blah, blah. However, this year is not the case because everybody's changing. So,
That's true.
if we're happy with their performance,
it's like an automatic reset.
Yeah, I wouldn't fret and I wouldn't recommend it at this point.
Okay.
But it's a good question and it's a good thing to keep on the radar for,
Yeah, so one thing that I try to do is when I'm getting the agenda together with Judy is look at the previous year's agenda items for that time frame and see if there's things that are supposed to be being done. So it will come up because it was done at some point, the discussion of the auditors. I want to say that's toward the end of the year, calendar year.
It
But I'd
was, it
have to
was
go
like,
through all
it
the
was like
notes.
when we first got back together, I believe, and
Yeah, I
like
want to see it's like
November.
November,
Yes.
right? Is when we discuss
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So
But I mean, there are other things we could do earlier, like the schedule
Right.
for next
That's-
year. But it's hard right now because everybody wants to go on vacation. Nobody wants to come to these meetings.
summertime is tough. I mean, yeah, summertime's really tough. So, no, I don't know of anything else. That I think the biggest thing is the update on what's going on with the tank, and then the school building committee, and that's going to come from Bill's office.
So we'll just play it by ear. If it's just things that are not like severe that we have to act on right away, we might even cancel it. But we'll keep it for now for the couple things we mentioned and see where it goes. Remarks for the good of the board. Same thing, guys. Thank you. Thank you for all
I've got a
showing
great
up.
story for you.
What was that, John?
I said I got a great story for you for remarks. Since we bought and
ahead.
sold the fire truck this year.
You what?
When I lived, since we bought, hold on a second.
Uh-oh.
Since we bought and sold a fire truck this year. When I lived in Vernon, we had I think it was a ladder truck that was obsolete, dangerous, end of its life. We got to get rid of it and replace it. And we did. We bought a new one. And we sold the old one to a neighboring town. A month after we sold it, the truck came back to us on a mutual aid call, and it was the pride of their fleet.
Oh no.
If this one comes back, and so it was a long ride, and it was probably a really bad day.
Really?
Bad for us.
Yeah.
Nice job. Thank you. It's a good laugh. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and thanks for the conversation and the different perspectives. It's great. Angie, it's your time.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Any second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
Have a
Enjoy
good
the
night.
sunshine, Christina.